Ash is the first breath of endings, Book of Cain. Kratos stands in Sparta's bone dust, his cape a banner of unbroken wrath. Atreus knocks an arrow. Odin's cloak swallows the horizon. Between them the Leviathan axe glows. Brok's hammer fell not for joy, but for a sister's ghost. Sindri's forged spark became a debt no god could pay. Kratos, the runes on that stanzan blade do not whisper of Sparta's bone justice dust, paid. How deep a Odin's cloak grave must a brother dig swallows to the horizon bury the world. What if the hammer's twin was no weapon but a dirge? Brok and Sindri, their sister's blood still staining the forge, carved fury into the Leviathan axe. Its edge did not QT unmade. 9 realms, stitched by ancient pacts, could only be unwoven by a sorrow older than the gods. Ragnarok's gears turned with their first strike. The brothers did not craft for power, they crafted to mourn, and in that mourning they etched the end into iron. A bargain silent as the void, the price, a king's life, a kingdom's breath, the world's last gasp. The forge's breath was a funeral hymn. Brok's hammer fell slower now as Sindri's hands trembled. Their sister's name died in the iron. A child's laughter, once bright as molten gold, had curdled to ash. Grief is a god that demands a throne, they carved it from their ribs. The anvil bore not a weapon, but a wound keen, hungry, shaped by the void where Brok's heart had shattered. Across the realms, a Spartan's shadow stretched. Kratos' cape, crimson as a drowning sun, billowed with the weight of children swallowed by time. Kronos' hunger had birthed a different kind of rage that rippled through Faye's blood, cold and unyielding. The brothers did not curse the gods. They cursed the silence between stars. Each strike whispered a debt to the void, a king's life, a kingdom's breath, the world's last gasp. When the 9 realms tremble, they will not remember Brok's laughter. They will remember the thing forged in his absence, a blade that does not cut but unmakes. A promise wrapped in iron. The dwarves did not seek Ragnarok, they etched it into the spine of the world. A silent bargain sealed with the same rage that drives a father's hand, a brother's, a god's. The weapon sleeps, waiting. Somewhere a cape flares red in the dark. And the void, ever patient, begins to hunger. The Allfather's blade dripped not blood but time. His single eye, suspended in Mimir's well, became a pendulum measuring ages, not moments. Knowledge gnawed at him like a rusted crown. Meanwhile, in Nidavelir's smoldering heart, Brok and Sindri hammered grief into metal. Their sister's name was lost to ash, but her voice lingered in every strike. The forge roared. Molten veins of dark iron twisted under their fists. A weapon took Shapate's spine, a serpent's spine, its edge a void carved by a god's fury. Kratos had bargained with Ares, his soul a coin in the war god's palm. The Greek god's laughter still echoed in the Spartans' bones, but the dwarves. They bartered with silence. Their pact was not spoken, it was forged in the marrow of their loss. The Leviathan axe drank not souls, but the weight of what it had cost to make it. Its runes glowed like embers in a corpse's hand. Odin's hunger for truth blinded him to the price of truth. He did not see the axe's shadow stretching across the realms. Brok, the elder brother, knew. His hammer slipped on Ceternity. The axe's head flared, a star collapsing into a shard. Sindri's breath hitched. They had not made a weapon, they had made a wound. A wound that could split the 9 realms open. The Dwarven forge trembled, not from heat, but from the thing sleeping in the anvil's grip. The axe's haft bore no runes of binding, only release. A question hung, sharp as its edge. What is a god but a wound given shape? The void from the prior beat now had a name. It was not the abyss. It was the thing the dwarves had buried in their craft. The Leviathan axe did not sleep, it waited, and waiting it learned. Somewhere a cape flares red in the dark, and the void, ever patient, begins to hunger. The throne's obsidian blade still hums with unclaimed power. Kratos' fingers curl into the armrest, knuckles whitening. His son's breath hitches behind him. A god's crown lies in the dust. He kicks it aside. The choice is made. Odin's laughter echoes through the halls, a sound like breaking ice. Brok's body crumples in the snow, his blood already darkening the frost. A warhammer lies forgotten in the slush. Sindri's hammer never rises again. The forge's heat scorches Sindri's face. His hands tremble, not from age, but from the weight of what they shape. Mjolnir's twin, no. This thing is jagged, screaming in the anvil's grip. Metal screams as if alive. The brother's sister once danced in this fire. Now her name is a curse on their tongues. Atreus reaches for Sindri's shoulder. The dwarf shrugs him off. A single tear carves a path through soot-streaked grime. The weapon's edge catches the light, a shard of grief honed to kill gods. Not Brok's hands, but Sindri's, not for vengeance, for an end. Kratos turns. The throne's shadow stretches like a noose. He did not choose this path, but paths are paved with corpses, Brok's, Loki's, the boy's mother's. The axe in his grip feels lighter than the crown, the realm between stirs. Atreus's eyes flicker with something ancient. A choice waits there too, to wield, to bury. To burn, the void hungers, it always hungers, but hunger is a language the dwarves understand. They fed it once. They will again. Sindri's hammer strikes the anvil. A spark leaps, it illuminates the weapon's chorea, black heart, pulsing with stolen starlight. This is no hammer, it is a dirge, a requiem for the nine. The throne room's silence is a wound. Kratos' shadow merges with the walls. He did not take the crown, but he took the blood. The price is paid. The realms will burn or be reborn. What does a god do when the throne offers only ash? He walks away, and the fire keeps burning. But the cost was a sister's breath, a king's final hammer sigh. They forged in ash, not gold. The anvil wept, the weapon took. And when the 9 realms burned, it was not Mjolnir's storm that fell, it was the silence between heartbeats. A debt paid in thunder, a nameless curse. A grief that outlives gods. Brok's breath stilled, Sindri's hammer fell, the forge's glow dimmed to ash. A brother's death became a blueprint, grief the anvil, silence the flame. The Leviathan axe did not merely cleavate unraveled, a wound given edge. Sindri turned his back on Kratos, on Atreus, on the gods who took their kin. What is a weapon but a wound made permanent? What is a realm but a wound delayed? Face saw the threads shift. Dwarven hands in Ragnarok's loom, not as victims but weavers. Did the Nornir foresee this, or did they blind themselves to what the brothers would become? The axe's true name rots in unspoken tongues, its purpose to unmake what grief cannot bear. Realms fold like paper, time bleeds. The cost of a sister's life is a world's, and in the forge's heart a question smolders. Did the dwarves bargain with death, or did death bargain with them? The answer lies where Brok's last breath meets Sindri's hammer, a weapon forged not to rule but to erase, a debt paid in thunder, a grief that outlives gods. The forge's heart burns blue, Brok's hammer falls once more, though his breath is dust. Sindri's hands, cracked with his brother's final heat, shape a blade that does not gleam, it pulses. The Leviathan axe, its runes no longer scars but living script, hums with a hunger older than Yggdrasil's roots. This is no weapon of kings. This is a dirge made tangible, the dwarves knew grief as a fuel. Brok, who once carved Mjol to Ur's might from storm clouds, now bends his craft to unmaking. Sindri, whose laughter once shook the forges of Nidavellir, now channels his sorrow into a silence that could shatter realms. The axe's edge drinks not of iron, but of absence at void where their sister's laughter once lived. Each strike of the hammer etches a vow, we will unmake what took her. Kratos, watching from the shadows of his own becoming, sees the mirror. His blade, once a Spartan's pride, now hangs hollow, a father's blood on his hands, a son's eyes growing sharp with frost. Atreus, who plays with ravens but speaks in wolves, begins to twist. His laughter carries the cadence of a god's, his shadow lengthening into something that prays. The axe's glow reflects in his pupil screen fire, not gold. What is a weapon but a promise? Brok and Sindri's pact is written in the axe's spine. Ragnarok is not an end, it is a correction. The 9 realms tremble not from the god's folly, but from the dwarves' quiet vengeance. The axe's runes, now alight with a light that predates the Aesir, whisper of a cycle broken. Of a debt paid not in gold but in the unraveling of fate itself. The camera lingers, the axe's glow deepens, a wound in reality's fabric. Kratos turns, his silhouette fraying at the edge, a man becoming myth. Atreus turns, his smile a blade. The dwarves' forge cools, their work is done. The realms, unaware, march toward an end forged not by prophecy, but by grief's unrelenting hand. Awe then not in the gods' grandeur, but in the quiet fury of those who build their reckoning in the dark. The Leviathan axe does not destroy, it undoes. And in its light, the 9 realms burn not to ash, but to possibility. The forge's breath has stilled, anvil cracks with frost. Brok's hammer, left mid-swing, rusts like a frozen heartbeat. Sindri's hands, once alchemists of fire, now cradle only shadows. He does not mend, he does not create. The scent of burnt iron lingers, but no flame answers it. In the mountain's belly, the Leviathan axe sleeps its edge, dulled by the dust of unspoken oaths. Kratos feels its weight, but not its truth. Atreus traces its runes, but not their cost. They walk forward, shadows lengthening behind them, while the Dwarven king's silent bargain festers. A debt paid in grief, a price carved in starlight and bone. When Baldur falls, the frost will not merely commate, will claw. Fimbulwinter's breath is a hammer strike, shattering seasons, and in that fracture the axe's purpose will awaken, not to slay but to unravel. The 9 realms burn not for sin, but for Sindri's final act of love, a brother's vengeance forged into a god's undoing. The Norns wove their threads tight, but the dwarves spun a thread darker. It coils now unseen in the space between destinies. The forge is silent. But silence in this tale is a weapon's prelude. How many deaths must the axe remember before it forgets to sleep? The mountains hold their breath. So does the world. The mountain's breath turns to frost. Grief is not a weapon, it is the anvil. Brok's final breath etched the Leviathan axe with a promise, not to rule but to unmake. Odin's eyes burn with the hunger of a man who has traded souls for syllables. He seeks an end he cannot name. Sindri, bound in silence, carves that name into every rune. A god's knowledge devours, a dwarf's sorrow builds. Tyr, shackled in his dark, knows the weight of a blade that cuts both chains and throats. The brothers' hands do not tremble. Their sister's voice lives in every hammer strike. What does a weapon remember when its maker's heart is ash? The axe does not forget. It pulses with the grief that birthed Ida, counterpoint to Odin's, a requiem for Tyr's unspoken oaths. The 9 realms spin on an axis of violence. One god reaches for truth, one brother reaches for vengeance, the other brother reaches for balance. The dwarves forged no mere weapon. They forged a question whose hands should hold the power to end. The mountain's breath becomes a scream, the runes ignite, the final mirror cracks. What falls first, the god or the myth? Sindri's breath falters, the Leviathan axe gleams in the forge's dying light. You don't understand what we made. The words hang, sharp as the weapon's edge. Brok's laughter echoes, stolen by the void where their sister once breathed. Grief is a hammer, grief is a furnace. It shaped not a god's toy, but a reckoning. The brothers' pact was never to serviently to unmake what took her. Kratos feels the rejection like a frost in the blood. No plea, no mercy. Only the silence of a door closed between worlds. The 9 realms shudder. Runes pulse, not in power, but in memory. Every gear in the mountain turns toward an end written in ash. The axe's blade drinks the light. What lies dormant in its core is not fury, but a question. When the realms burn, will gods or brothers fall first? The camera lingers, metal whispers to metal. The weight of a promise unspoken, the weight of a secret too vast for gods. The screen fades, a single rune flickers, then dies. What else smolders in the dwarven deep? Brok and Sindri's flames birthed more than hammers. A blade forged in unyielding grief, its edge honed on a sister's memory. A weapon silent as the void. Did their sorrow carve a fate for the 9 realms? The Leviathan axe waits. What else did the brothers bargain with